I never imagined I'd die at just 12 years old, but there I was, lying in a hospital bed, my body growing weaker with every passing minute. The doctors said I had a rare, aggressive disease. They tried everything they could, but nothing worked. My parents sat beside me, their eyes red from crying, holding my hands tightly. I wanted to tell them not to be sad, that I was okay, but I couldn't find the strength to speak. My eyelids grew heavier, and as I drifted into darkness, I heard my mom whisper, "We love you." Suddenly, I felt weightless. It was as though I had been unshackled from my body. When I opened my eyes, I was floating above my hospital bed. I could see everything. The machines beeping urgently, the doctors rushing around, my parents holding on to me like their touch could keep me there. I wanted to reach out, to tell them I was okay, but no matter how loudly I screamed, no one could hear me. That's when I saw it, a light in the corner of the room. It wasn't just any light. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen, shimmering with colors that didn't exist on Earth. It pulsed with warmth and love, and I felt an irresistible pull toward it. As the light grew brighter, everything else faded away, and I let myself be drawn into it. The moment I entered the light, everything changed. I was no longer in the hospital. Instead, I found myself standing in a breathtaking garden. It was unlike anything I had ever imagined. The grass beneath my feet was impossibly green, as if it had been painted with pure life. The flowers around me bloomed in every color imaginable, some I couldn't even name. The air was sweet, carrying the scent of blossoms and fresh bread. I heard the faint sound of music, a melody so perfect it made my soul feel lighter. I knew instantly that I wasn't on Earth anymore. This was a place of peace, of love, of unshakable joy. As I stood there, marveling at the beauty around me, I noticed a man walking toward me. He wore a white robe that seemed to glow, and his face radiated kindness. His eyes were filled with an indescribable love, and though I had never met him before, I knew exactly who he was. "Jesus," I whispered. He smiled, and his voice was soft yet powerful. "Welcome, my child. I've been waiting for you." Tears filled my eyes as I ran to him. Without a word, he opened his arms, and I felt myself wrapped in the warmest, most comforting embrace. It was as though every worry, every pain I had ever felt, melted away in his arms. I didn't want to let go. Jesus took my hand, and we began walking through the garden. Each step felt like a gift, the grass soft beneath my feet. With every moment, I felt stronger, healthier, and more alive than I had ever been. We stopped beneath a massive tree with golden fruit hanging from its branches. Jesus picked one and handed it to me. "Eat," he said. "This is the fruit of life." I took a bite, and it was the most delicious thing I had ever tasted. It was sweet and refreshing, filling me with energy that seemed to flow through every part of me. As I ate, questions bubbled up inside me. Questions I had always wanted to ask, but never had the chance. "Jesus," I began hesitantly, "can I ask you something?" He nodded, his smile never wavering. "Of course, my child. What would you like to know?" I thought for a moment before asking, "When will the world end?" Jesus' expression grew thoughtful, though his eyes remained kind. "That's a big question," he said, "but it's not something to fear. It will happen when the time is right, and when it does, I will come back to make everything new. But how will we know?" I pressed, "Will there be signs?" "Yes," Jesus said. "There will be wars, natural disasters, and people will turn away from God. But those who love God need not be afraid. They should keep doing good, living with love and faith." I nodded, trying to absorb his words. "And what happens after the world ends?" I asked. "There will be a new heaven and a new earth," Jesus explained. "Everything broken will be made whole. There will be no more pain, no more sadness, and no more death. Everyone who loves God will live with him forever. It sounded beautiful, but I couldn't stop thinking about something else. What about people who don't believe in God? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Jesus' expression grew somber. God loves everyone deeply and wants all to come to him. But he also gives each person a choice. Those who choose not to be with God will be separated from him. That is why it's so important to share his love while there is still time. I felt the weight of his words and nodded. So, what should we do while we're waiting? Jesus' smile returned, brighter than ever. Live with love, he said. Love God with all your heart. And love others as you love yourself. Help those in need. Forgive those who hurt you. Pray and read the Bible to know God better. And always remember, I am with you, even when you can't see me. As we walked, I saw other people in the garden. They looked happy and peaceful, some singing, others laughing and talking together. It felt like one big family, united by love. We came to a golden stand with a massive book resting on it. It was the biggest book I had ever seen. What's that? I asked. Jesus smiled. This is the book of life. It contains the names of everyone who loves God and follows him. I hesitated. Is my name in there? Jesus nodded. Yes, my child, it is. And there's still room for more. We continued walking and came to a crystal-clear river, its water sparkling like diamonds. Jesus told me it was the river of life, and I bent down to touch it. It felt cool and refreshing, and when I stood up, I felt even more alive. As we walked along the river, I saw animals living together in perfect harmony, lions playing with lambs, eagles soaring gracefully overhead. In heaven, Jesus said, all creation lives in peace. There is no fear, no pain, only love. Finally, we arrived at a magnificent city with walls made of precious stones and streets of gold, so pure they were transparent. This is the New Jerusalem, Jesus said. It's where God lives with his people. The city was filled with light, but there was no sun or moon. Jesus explained that God's glory was the source of the light. As we walked through the city, I saw figures I recognized: Moses, David, and Mary. They waved and smiled, their faces radiant with joy. At the heart of the city was a great throne, more beautiful than anything I could have imagined. This is God's throne, Jesus said. From here, he rules with love and justice. As I stood there, I heard the sound of angels and people singing together in perfect harmony. It was the most beautiful music I had ever heard, and it filled me with joy. Jesus turned to me and said, "It's time for you to go back." My heart sank. Do I have to? I asked. He nodded. Yes, my child. You still have work to do. People need to hear about God's love, and you can tell them what you've seen here. I was scared. Will it hurt? Jesus hugged me. No, it won't. And remember, I'll always be with you. He took my hand and walked me back to the light. As we reached the edge, he looked at me and asked, "Are you ready?" I took a deep breath and nodded. I'm ready. Jesus smiled, his love shining brighter than the light itself. Go with my blessing. And remember, I love you always. In an instant, I was back in my body. I opened my eyes to see my parents and doctors staring at me in shock. My mom cried tears of joy as she hugged me. I had returned, and I knew I had a mission: to share God's love and live each day with purpose. Even though I didn't know when the world would end, I wasn't afraid anymore. I knew that Jesus would be with me every step of the way, and one day, I would see that beautiful garden again.